Good evening. We're going to have this meeting called to order. Dr. Foley, roll call, please.
President Kaler, members of the board, please let the record show that 4 members are present. Mr. Witovich is not able to join us this evening.
Thank you very much. We're going to have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
2.1, I move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
Any questions?
President Kaler,
Yes.
I just want to make it clear that our meeting tonight and our discussion tonight is not, we're not voting on if we're keeping schools open or closed right now. And I know based on a lot of emails we received that people believe that we are meeting tonight to have a vote whether we're going to keep our schools opened or closed. That is not what tonight's discussion is, or our vote is. Our discussion and any voting items is to further our mitigation plan. So I just wanted to kind of make that clarification with the agenda tonight.
Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Board comments. Mr. Glover.
Well, I just, if you've written to me, you probably got some variation of this response, but I'm telling everybody, and I just think we have to spread the messages of the things that we all must do if we want to keep our schools open. So I'm just going to be a broken record. So wear a mask properly, wash your hands, avoid large gatherings, get tested, stay at home if you have any symptoms, stay at home if you think you have COVID and are awaiting test results, and then carefully consider your holiday plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. Wonderful reminders. We are going to move. Anybody else? Go ahead. Oh, I'm so sorry, Mrs. Wilson.
I just want to thank everybody who sent emails. I have read them all. I may not have responded, but I just want to say thank you. I have read your concerns, and I'm listening.
President Kaler?
Yes, Mrs. Reese.
Same. We received a lot of emails, and even if you didn't get a response, because there are so many, I too read them and took all the information into consideration on how people are feeling and thinking, and regarding COVID and some other items. So I too received lots of emails.
Yes, and also just to piggyback on both of you, if Dr. Foley or any administrators are left off of an email that is sent to me, I make sure that those get forwarded on to the right personnel, because sometimes it's just sent to the board, and it really helps when I send them off to Dr. Foley or any of our other cabinet members. So again, yes, lots of emails, and we do read every one of them. It's my morning coffee routine. We're going to move on to requests to speak, and I have a little blurb here before we get started. We value input from our constituents. The time has been set aside for anyone from the audience who wishes to address the board. Please remember, this is not an appropriate venue to evaluate, discuss, or criticize district personnel. Policy KEB provides a process for complaints about personnel. Speakers should be aware that false statements about individuals may result in civil liability. Members of the board may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431- 01H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and a decision at a later date. And we are going to limit our response, as always, to 3 minutes. So first, I have Kristen Gomez. I'm sorry, I just got them as is.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Wilson. I'm actually a special education teacher, resource teacher at Bridges Elementary. And I just wanted to come up and first thank you all for everything that you're doing for us. I know this is a year of difficulty for everyone. And I also wanted to just thank you again for reading my email. As a teacher for the district, as well as a mother, I have 3 children that attend schools here in the district. One of them is a special needs student. And I know that we're not discussing or voting tonight, but as a mom, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the fact that you all gave him the opportunity to go to school, because online teaching for him is a huge struggle, like many special education kids. It's very difficult for him. And without, even though the staff tried with aid support online or, the extra support that the teachers were trying to give him, it was awful. And for the first time in my life, having an autistic child, I thought I was going to have to do something for his mental stability, because he needs to have in person, he needs to have that connection with a person, even his peers. He has become very much, he's my loving Warren, but he has to have the connection. And without that connection, he struggles. And so even though they tried to support online when we had to go online back in March, his behavior turned to a point that was very scary and troublesome, because he had made such strides in our program through Higley with special ed. And so I bring that to your attention because I know you have a lot on your plate. I know that there's a lot at stake here. But I also know as a teacher, we are doing everything we can on our property, and we are working hard, and we are cleaning, and we are disinfecting, and we make sure that those kids follow the rules. They all want to be on campus. They love being back on campus. We have seen such a huge change in kids, and this is gen ed and sped kids alone, like all of them. Like, they want to do better. They want to work hard. They want to do their work. They have missed being in school. And they've missed not only their peers, but they've missed the teachers. They've missed the engagement that they get to have with those teachers, the learning. And we're taking a situation and we're doing the best we all can. It's not going to be perfect, but I will tell you that these kids deserve us. They deserve our community standing up and following the rules of wearing a mask and washing our hands and staying 6 feet apart and not traveling during the holidays, to keep them where they deserve to be. Because in 20 years, that's who's going to be running our country. And if they went for 2 years without an education, that's what worries me. So thank you for everything you all are doing. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart as an educator and as a parent.
Thank you so much. Next up, I have Julie Hancock.
Good evening, Higley Board, Dr. Foley. My name is Julie Hancock. I am a parent of 5 children that have been raised in the district. My youngest, my baby, is now a senior. And I am also an employee. I teach at Fossman Early Childhood Development Center. I want to thank you for your efforts to keeping our schools safe and open during the past 4 months. As a special education teacher, preschool teacher, I can tell you that our staff is working tirelessly to clean and sanitize the classroom, the playground, and the whole building. Our 3 to 5-year-olds are doing a phenomenal job of wearing masks. I am telling you that some of our special needs kids at times struggle to even keep their shoes on, but these kids are wearing their masks. We are social distancing as best as we can, and for children in this age group, the parents are keeping children home like I've never seen before. They are doing so because they support us teachers, and they want their children to continue to have in-person learning opportunities. I want to thank you for your efforts to keep our schools open, even as cases rise. I feel fortunate that I'm working in Higley and not at a charter school down the road from us that is closed because they don't have staffing to keep it open. I'm grateful that our mitigation guidelines allow us to keep teaching, and that although most of us hate wearing masks, that they are allowing us to keep teaching in person, even if someone in our class tests positive. My purpose in speaking today is to ask you to continue to keep our classrooms open for in-person learning. Even if you're not voting on it tonight, just please keep this in your heart and in your thoughts. I have taught virtually. I can tell you that even though we teachers did everything we could to make our lessons engaging and appropriate, our special needs students struggled. My 3 to 5-year-olds are not able to gain an appropriate education through a screen. All of my students have speech delays and have other developmental disabilities. They need one-on-one attention from a caring teacher. They need their peers to model appropriate behavior. They need speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, which is hands-on and very difficult to do virtually. They need eye contact and physical feedback that comes from in-person learning. I can tell you these things because I have taught them, I have experienced them, and they are not appropriate for our special needs students, no matter what age. Federal law states that we must provide a free and appropriate education, and this is not done so in a virtual learning environment. We spent the last quarter online with these kids and 3 weeks of this school year online before we went in person. I've seen dramatic increases in their behavior and in their development. They are happy to be in person, the teachers are happy to be back, the parents are happy that they're back, and children thrive in a happy environment. If our cases continue to rise and we have to shut down, I'm asking you to please remember our most vulnerable students, our special needs students, who need consistency and a face-to-face contact. Our youngest learners can't excel on an online platform. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Rebecca Shaver.
Speak right here. Okay, thank you. First off, I want to say thank you so much for letting parents participate in this meeting and to be here. I really appreciate it. I would like to read Dr. Redfield's most recent statements regarding schools. He is the director of the CDC. He said, "Schools are among the safest places that American children can be amid surging cases of coronavirus across the country. School closures are an emotional response to rising infection rates. Data does not support the notion that closing schools reduces coronavirus transmission. Children are not major vectors of coronavirus and are less likely to become infected with coronavirus or spread it compared to adults. Infections detected in schools did not necessarily originate there, but simply reflect the spread of coronavirus in the wider community." And Dr. Fauci just this past Sunday said, "Keep the schools open. If you look at the data, the spread among children and from children is not very big at all." With the constant narrative of follow the science, science, data, and experts are all in favor of keeping schools open, even when cases are on the rise. Closing Higley schools won't stop community spread. As long as adults can enjoy themselves at a bar and go to the movies and have dinner at a restaurant with their peers, children should be able to learn in a classroom with or without a virus in the community. The sole purpose of our education system is for educating children. It should not be used to profit off of children. It should not be an employment protection program, and it should not be a political entity. So I ask this board to continue what you've all been doing already, which is keep our schools open. And I really appreciate the board members that have voted to open our Higley schools. And I so appreciate the staff members and the teachers that are coming every day, showing up every day for our kids to keep our schools open for children and families that truly mean it. So I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Heather Mays. Did I say that correctly?
First off, I just want to say thank you for allowing us to be here tonight and speak to you guys. I appreciate the opportunity to do that. And I want to say thank you to all of you on the board, along with teachers and staff who work tirelessly every day and put in hard work and effort that is keeping our kids in school and keeping our kids' needs at the forefront of the agenda. My daughter, who is in middle school at Cooley, has attended the Higley School District schools for the last 5 years. She's always been a good student and excelled with good grades. This year, as she began her school year remotely, her grades were shocking to us as we looked over them and saw D, C, F. It was very concerning to us as parents after a long stretch of A's and B's from our daughter. Thanks to the leaders of our district and teachers, our daughter was able to return to in-school learning and along with other students at Cooley, and I'm happy to report that her grades are once again almost all A's. So we're very happy to see that, and just a very strong reminder to us that the in-person learning is so incredibly effective for her, and that she really struggled with the online. Even when she didn't have the ability to verbalize that to us, it was very apparent in her grades, and that we could see that. I'm also the mother of a special needs fourth grader. They're getting a lot of support tonight, it sounds like, which I'm so happy about. But I'm the mother of a special needs fourth grader, and this has been especially eye-opening for us as to just how crucial daily in-person learning is for him. We're incredibly grateful for the teachers who day in and day out love our kids and want to see them succeed just like we do. On a number of occasions while sitting next to my son, while he's having online instructional Zoom calls, and sitting next to him, assisting him, there has been a number of times where he's gotten so frustrated or overwhelmed with the inability to navigate the computer that he has gotten up and shut the laptop before I even have a chance to stop him or help assist him in what he's struggling with. We've learned that online schooling is completely ineffective for our son, as I'm sure is the case with many other students who are challenged or have an IEP that requires specialized learning assistance. As a parent, I do not have the adequate training or resources to progress my kids' education the same way our teachers do. And again, I'm just so grateful for the opportunity for them to be in person and to be in school learning, and say thank you for that. And thank you to all of our teachers who are working so hard every day to keep our kids in school. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Jennifer Zauer.
Members of the board and Dr. Foley. I know I shared this with you via email, but I feel it's important to share it with the community as well. So over the course of the pandemic, I have learned of the importance of speaking up and sharing concerns. Sometimes it brings change. Sometimes people think the concerns you raise are crazy. And sometimes the only positive is that you know you said something rather than staying silent and wishing you had spoken up. Like many in our community, I've been trying to understand how community numbers can be so high while school dashboard numbers are so low. In my desire to understand the discrepancy, I searched for an explanation, and while searching, I read that not all positive cases in the district are reported on the dashboard. I reached out to the district nurse to confirm how numbers are reported and learned that if a student is outside of their exposure period, which as I understand it, is 2 days before an onset of symptoms or 2 days before a positive test if asymptomatic, and they test positive, their result will not count on the dashboard. This means there is an entire bucket, if you will, of kids and teachers who are positive and currently enrolled in in-person school who do not show up. Without including this bucket, we don't have a realistic picture of what is happening. This is concerning, so I'm asking you as a district and governing board to consider 3 things that are really related to your proposed school closure things you have in your PowerPoint for tonight. 1, please include all staff and students with positive COVID tests on your dashboard. If you have to add a separate column for that missing bucket to indicate they were not active, then do that, but don't withhold a set of crucial data. Teachers cannot withhold a subset of student scores in order to make their test scores look better, so we shouldn't withhold a subset of test results to keep our numbers on the dashboard low. Please use more than just the HUSD COVID dashboard, which relies on parents to self-report to make decisions about keeping schools open. Instead, use a combination of the dashboard and the Arizona Department of Health Services COVID dashboard which includes all positive tests. It doesn't discriminate based on when someone tested positive. Neighboring districts like Gilbert are doing this. Please stay true to your words from when you voted to open schools in August, only if numbers continued in the right direction. Both the Arizona Department of Health dashboard and the Higley dashboard are trending in the wrong direction. In fact, there was a 100% increase in the number of active cases on the HUSD dashboard from Monday to Tuesday. The families, teachers, and staff in this district trusted you to open because you said you would watch the numbers to make sure they were going the right way. Please don't take away this trust. When I first started teaching 20 years ago, my mentor shared an analogy with me that I still share today with my college students. When teaching students, we want to be the doctor and perform well checks or assessments so that you can diagnose concerns when they are small and easily treatable. If you miss these checkups and don't intervene, then you end up in the emergency room because things have spun out of control. Our district is getting a checkup every week right now with the benchmarks from the Arizona Department of Health Services. The emergency lights are flashing, and it's time to intervene. I know there isn't an easy answer or one that makes everybody happy. I'm sure you've had as many sleepless nights wondering if you made the right choice as I've had wondering if I've made the right choice as a mom. But I know that I will sleep easier tonight knowing that I at least shared my thoughts with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
President Kaler?
Yes.
Can I just comment real quick on?
Yes.
Thank you for coming up and speaking with us, and I read your email, and I've seen some of your the same type of comments in multiple emails, that I just wanted to clarify just something real quick is when we voted to open our schools and we said we were going to watch the numbers, that was prior to our opening. When we had our discussion of opening our schools, we also did indicate we were not going to be using the Maricopa County dashboard any longer after our schools opened. That once our schools opened, then we would work with the county on when and if and when we would need to close. And like I said, I've heard multiple emails where people have referred that our dashboard for Maricopa County is continuing to rise and that we're choosing to ignore that, and that we said we would watch those numbers. And we did say we would watch those numbers. We had a 2-week period from the time we were voting till we were opening schools. And so we did say we were going to watch that to make sure they were trending correctly prior to, and that we would pull an emergency meeting if we needed to change the decision we had made. So I totally hear what you're saying, and I've heard that comment multiple times in our community. And so I felt the need to clarify that we did say we were going to watch those numbers prior to opening. And then we also indicated once we do open, we would no longer use that dashboard on determining the direction of our schools. So I wanted to clarify that so people understand that we're not doing something that we said we would do. And so this board has done what we said we were going to do, and we did watch those when we decided to open to make sure they were still trending down, because when we were making that decision, we were on that cusp of our numbers turning green, and so we felt they were headed in that direction. We made that vote expecting them to turn green, but we did say we would watch those to see if that changed prior to our opening date. So I just wanted to clarify, but I hear what you're saying, and I'm sure we'll have some discussion on our dashboard tonight as well. So I appreciate your input there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Jen Larson.
I just want to start by saying how much we appreciate all that you guys have done, and especially from the moment you guys decided to get our kids back in school and the efforts that have been made. And I looked at the dashboard today, as I'm sure many people look at the dashboard often, and what you have done is a success, because our numbers, there's over 13,000 people on the dashboard that are included between staff and students, and there are currently 16 active cases. And I understand that those numbers may not reflect right this moment But that is still a testament to your success and what you're doing and how you're doing it. Because as we've all learned very quickly throughout this whole process, numbers are not all they seem to be, and they are not extremely accurate. I heard one researcher say yesterday that up to 50% of positive cases or positive results could actually be negative. So we have to be very careful. I will cite it and actually send it to you guys if you would like that. So we have to be very careful basing so much information on these numbers. And also, I don't want to get off track, but I've had kids at Higley School District for 10 years now. Love Higley School District. The teachers are amazing, and anything I say is no reflection on those teachers that want to be there with our children. I think that is a good majority of them, and I appreciate them so much, and I appreciate your guys' work. And I know that this is you guys are voted in for this position, and so we are your constituents, and I hope that you guys do listen to us. And the one point that I really want to make is every single parent that is dropping off their kids at school right now, which is in the thousands, agrees with what you're doing. The parents that have their children in online school currently are the ones that maybe don't agree with what you're doing with in-person, and I am sure that you know that the greater majority of parents are happy with the choices that you've made and the way you're handling this, and they show that by dropping their student off, giving you that ability to take care of their student. So also, yeah, I just want to appreciate the courage that you guys have had in doing what you've done. As far as experts go and listening to so much misinformation and so much information, it's overwhelming. I try and stay up to date. I'm sure you guys try to stay up to date. I think no matter what, the CDC needs to trump whatever Arizona guidelines are. The CDC is not perfect, but they are the standard. And because someone has come up with some other arbitrary number that they think we should be following, that should not supersede the CDC. There's also thousands of experts, epidemiologists, child psychologists. I could go on, and I'd be happy to send you any information. I'm sure you get plenty, that all agree that children should be in school. They are not super spreaders. Their infection rate is extremely low, as you can see from the dashboard. And as far as concerns about asymptomatic spreading, the CDC says that that is extremely rare. So when you add the rarity of children passing it on top of asymptomatic children, I think we're very safe. But anyway, I just want to say I appreciate so much what you guys are doing, and especially thank you for allowing us to be here as parents and as members of the community to share how we feel.
Thank you. I have two more. I wasn't sure if they're here. Kristen Apodaca, did I say that right? All right. Senor Apodaca, I think, was my Spanish teacher, so maybe that's where it came back.
Okay. So yes, hi, my name is Kristen Apodaca, and I first want to just say thank you for the opportunity to be able to be here and speak tonight. I have 4 children in the district. I have 1 in high school who also played football this season. I have 1 in middle school and 2 in elementary. I've had the opportunity to experience the way things are being handled at all 3, and I've been very impressed with all the precautions taken every day and how well the staff and students do with following all the guidelines at school. Okay. The previous shutdown and experience of virtual learning for my children was not one I would ever like to happen again. One of my children is on an IEP, and being back to in-person school has been a night and day experience from when he was doing virtual learning. He needs the one-on-one help academically, as well as being able to be in community with his peers for his mental health. My daughter also struggled with depression during virtual learning. I understand there are many who do well with the virtual platform, but there are equally, if not more, that do not. I have serious concerns for our children if we shut the schools back down again. There are studies coming out about how high the failure rate is amongst the students on the virtual platform. There are also studies showing how high the mental health issues like depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and attempts are with the amount of isolation the kids experience. Our mental health industry is overwhelmed right now. It is almost impossible to get an appointment because providers are so full they are not taking new patients or their availability is months out. I know as a district I've heard you say that you want to look to the experts or to the science to help guide you in your decisions. Dr. Fauci on November 29th said, and I quote, We should not be shutting our schools down. If there was a choice, we should shut down the bars and keep schools open, not shut down the schools and keep the bars open. I sincerely hope you take his recommendation seriously. My biggest question tonight is, what is the end goal? How many times will we open and close the schools? Of course, if we shut down the schools and even the state, cases will go down. And when they open up again, they will go up, because logically, that's how it works. I have watched the dashboards for all 3 schools my children attend over the last few months, and they have all been low in cases, especially when you compare the amount of cases versus the amount of students and staff in the school. The dashboard has also shown that each case documented was equally a case resolved. Higley has done a great job of letting parents know if there was a case and if their child was exposed. I know there's a lot of pressure on the board tonight from parents and groups who think the best answer is to shut down. I truly hope this board puts all children and only the children first and chooses to keep the schools open while also continuing to offer the option to those who want their children to go back to the online platform. I think Higley has a huge opportunity right now to be a leader and show others that our district puts the children first and has done a great job of implementing guidelines, and we should praise our teachers and students for how well they have followed them in the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And did Sarah Sullinger, did I say that correct? It's Karen? Oh, Kara. I'm so sorry. It looked like
That's
a
all right.
S. Kara.
That's all right.
So sorry.
My friend wrote it down for me, so she probably wrote it wrong.
Blame the friend.
That's right. It's her fault. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. First, I just want to say thank you for the job you've done. When I know you volunteered this job, you didn't plan on a major pandemic, so thanks for sticking with it for our kiddos. I have a friend on the Awatuki board, and I know that she's definitely had it rough. So thanks to the teachers, staff who spent countless hours trying to change everything familiar to accommodate so many situations. My name is Kara. I'm a mom to 5 kids. 3 go to Chaparral Elementary, but before we went to Gateway Points, we've been with the Higley Unified School District for 6 years. We love it. We have had friends that go to charter schools, and huge advocate for public school. My mom's a high school math teacher, so she's in her last year of teaching, so I have major respect for school teachers. Sorry, I'm like such an emotional person in general. I don't know what the future holds, but the kids being in school has been the best for them mentally, physically, emotionally. I'm a stay-at-home mom, but I also work 2 part-time jobs. In the spring, when the class load was a little bit lighter, we were able to trudge along with homeschool, but this fall was a different story. We started school at 8 a.m., finished about 5 p.m. every night. Managing 3 kids was rough, lots of tears, lots of falling behind. To spend hours catching up, lots of Googling, researching to learn how to teach my children, pretty much retaking 4th and 6th grade. 1st grade was a little bit easier. Since they've been back in school, their grades have gone up. They've had more time to just be a kid without the heavy burden of at-home school putting on them. They've had less of a workload. I think they've gotten it more done in school. Anxiety has decreased. My 11-year-old son, who was very depressed, has been very happy back at school. There was a few weeks back in the fall before we opened up that I was kind of looking for a different option for schools, just because I knew that there wasn't a perfect option out there, but I just was very desperate. So I was just searching for anything normal, but stuck it out, and I'm happy I did. My work suffered. I felt like I was a newborn again in the fall. I felt like even just like showering was hard. Eating during the day, because my kids had different lunch schedules, and just trying to work with all 3 of them, trying to find Zoom meeting spots in my house, trying to shuffle the different computer situation, because not all of them had Word or whatever they needed for school. Lots of anxiety, lots of agitation. I also have 2 twin 4-year-olds at home, so that was hard to juggle. I chose all these kids, so I'm not complaining about the amount of kids I have. I'm just saying it was very stressful, a very tearful few months. With COVID cases being low in our district, and reports I've read that schools aren't really the super spreaders, I just really hope we can keep schools open, functioning how they are currently. Fortunate to stay at home, but I know that there's not very many people that are as fortunate as I am to help their kids. So I hope you take that into consideration. So anyway, talk too long. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a built-in math tutor for your high schoolers coming up. Thank you all for speaking tonight. Thank you for being here. I know it's not easy to get up here and speak, so I appreciate each and every one of you for coming and taking the time. And you can share with your friends that we do social distance our boardroom. We have masks, and I think everybody feels fairly safe in this environment, so we welcome people to come and speak at our board meetings. One thing that came to mind when everybody was speaking is I remember when Dr. Foley in the spring, she was invited by a family to come and see a mama teach and a daddy teach class, and you spent time in a home watching them. I think it was 5 children that they were juggling online. So you had I saw Dr. Foley's head kind of shaking with some of you mamas out there, because she did go and see firsthand what that online learning in a home looked like. So I appreciated that in you. Okay, we're going to move on. Yes, go ahead.
President. Well, I appreciate everyone who's spoken and acknowledged the work of our staff, and I just wanted to call some attention to that. And, when you consider the issue of closing a school, which we are not talking about directly tonight, just keep in mind, our staff, it's not just the kids, it's the kids that are in contact with our staff. And I worry about them. I think we all worry about the safety of our staff, but it's also the brothers and sisters of the children who go to our schools, and the parents and the grandparents. So we worry about all of these things. Yeah, it's primarily about the kids. It's kids first. I've never said anything different. But these teachers are really very stressed, and we should acknowledge that and factor that into it. And then when you have a classroom, when you have even 10 kids in quarantine, these teachers are committed, and they're doing their best all day long teaching, and then they feel obligated to go home and try to reach out to those kids who are in quarantine. And it's a lot. We're talking about other places that have had success. Europe enacted really strong public and private mitigation, but they preserved schooling. So it's really not me you should be talking to. It's our governor that you should write to and talk to and ask him to close some of these businesses so that we can preserve school. That will help as well. But I mean, you're welcome to write to me or to be angry with me too, but I can only do so much. The people that I'm angry with is, I ran into the store, and I knew exactly where I was going in and out, blah, blah, blah. But I saw a guy, and he had on a shirt that said, "You're an American, act like it." But he was wearing his mask inside this store on his chin. And I just thought, dude, these are the people that need to get it. Because we shouldn't be fighting with one another. We should be telling those people to get with it, man, because you're ruining it for everybody. And can I tell the mask police story? Is that okay? So a group of parents visited our school and were in the stands, and they weren't adhering to the mask protocols, and they were asked politely, I think, and then by security. And instead of adhering to that so that we could all be safe and sports could continue for our kids, they decided to chant, "Mask police, go away." These are the people we have to be angry with. These are the people who are ruining it for all of us. So you might not like some of my reactions to some of the decisions I have to make, but it's a result of the actions of some very selfish people. So anyway, all right, that's enough.
Go ahead, Mrs. Wilson.
I hate following Mr. Glover, I'm not going to lie. He makes it very difficult. I just want to thank all the parents who got up and spoke. I know it's not ever easy to get up and be a public comment. I enjoy that we have public comment, and we've had it since September 8th or 9th, I think was our first board meeting back, the 9th. And I just appreciate all of you coming and putting yourselves out there, because it's never easy. We do it time and time again, and for you guys to do it, it's a big deal. So thank you, and thank you for all your emails. I think every single one of you I may have seen an email from, so thank you that I got a preview of it. So thank you so much.
Yes, I was going to say that Mr. Ducey's more worried about outside restaurant venues today than our schools, but I digress and I won't go any further. So we're going to move on to our mitigation plan, and Dr. Foley and her entire cabinet, I think, is going to be presenting tonight.
President Kaler, members of the board. Yes, tonight we're going to be talking through an additional mitigation plan to kind of more formally put out there what would be a plan if we were to have rising cases on campus. But before we start that, we want to start tonight, the district cabinet administration and I want to start with a thank you. We want to kind of start with this extended thank you to our entire Higley community for their grace, their flexibility, for their perseverance, their passion, and our ongoing dedication during these constantly changing and challenging times. To our students, we want you to know that we are proud of you. We want you to just keep focusing on your learning and keep making choices that help keep you and those around you safe. To our employees, wow, we are amazed by the colleagues that we work with. Collectively as a profession, we collectively have never worked so hard. We are adapting fast. We are working on every level to make sure that what we do is in the best interest of our students. And again, I think you can be proud that at every level of our organization, we have colleagues doing what is best for their students and working hard to keep their students and each other safe. I think we've demonstrated again that Higley is one of the best places to be. Our professionals are amazing. Our support staff are some of the best, and we're grateful for them and what they're doing for our students. We also appreciate our families and community members. I mean, we are truly blessed to live in a place and to work in a place where we have such an involved community. And so for those of you who have reached out to us, who have emailed us, who have called us with comments, questions, and concerns, we want to thank you. We want you to know that we hear you, that we're listening to you, and while we may not always be able to give you the answer you're wanting to hear, that we're listening and we're trying to respond to you with what we're able to do. The cabinet and I want to thank our governing board. The amount of hours, the amount of time, the dedication you've shown during this time with us is important, and we appreciate you. Please know that your leadership team has spent hours and hours, and we continue to spend hours and hours navigating the constant COVID management as it shifts and changes and new information comes out and unique needs come out. Please know that your team is approaching this with integrity, that they're doing this with their whole hearts, with our passion, with every fiber of our being, with the whole hope that what we do is right for our students in Higley. So please know that we are an amazing place, and we've got amazing people, and I want us to start with thanking this collective community for what we're doing and how we're doing it together. So with that, we kind of would like to start an update tonight with our recommendation for our mitigation plan. So we're going to start this with a conversation of, so what do we know, and what are our more formalized plans? And so obviously we know that when we look at the Public Health and Maricopa dashboards, it's continuing to trend in the wrong direction. Yes, today, Governor Ducey and Kara Christ are warning us that it's going to continue to trend in the wrong direction. It's important to remember that the data that's released each week is in a 2-week lag time. And so again, this is important for us to know. Again, we also have our own dashboard. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the dashboard here in a while, but one of the things that's important to know is that our dashboard is updated daily, Monday through Friday, and that we are being governed by directive and direction on our metrics that we report that is in alignment with the health department. I think it's also important to know one of the things, this question that has come up often is, well, how do you know if parents don't tell you? One of the good things is, again, every one of our students that's enrolled is also through ADE Connect, which is aligned to a school district. The health department works with the State Department to inform every positive test is aligned back to a school. So if you don't tell us, we will know and find out anyhow. Again, the lag time might be there, but again, we will find out and have an opportunity to be aware of that. So again,
Dr. Foley, I'm just going to interrupt real quick. And that's so important that when our students are waiting for a test result, that they don't come to school when they're, we had our nurse this week alone, I know, called out 2 students.
yeah,
We have to stop that.
Yep.
And we have said it over and over and over again. Stay at home, and it's okay to stay at home. So I don't know how else we can say it in any other way, but I just had to put that out there.
it's an important thing to remember. And again, one of the things that we had outlined before is that if we had rising cases or if the health department had any concern at all, we would always respond and close on a site-by-site. But we also wanted to clarify for a community to more formally present this to you for us to discuss what that would look like in the event we should have cases rise on campus. And so that's what we're going to kind of talk through tonight. So what else do we know?
Foley, I'm sorry. Can I ask a quick question about the dashboard? I know there was discussion that we've had several students email teachers saying, hey, I'm going to be out because I have COVID and this and that. And we have had, when the teacher receives that, we've had people follow up with the parents to find out, hey, this is what's happened, they're not here, do they have this? And on some occasions, it's been no, they've never even been tested. Or on other occasions, it's been yes, they do. What shows up on the dashboard? I mean, we have people self-reporting.
Yep.
And so what numbers show up on the dashboard?
Okay, in 3 slides, I'm going to get there and go into that. So if you give me 2 slides more, I will go into a little more detail on that. I'll put up the dashboard and we'll talk about it. You're welcome. So when we look at our own data on our dashboard, one of the things is there's a story behind each and every one of these. And one of the things that's important to know is that we follow, our district nurse, Jillian, has never also worked so hard. The woman works literally around the clock. I know because she and I are on the phone all hours of every day, talking through what we've learned and what she's finding out or what we know. And what we're finding is that we are seeing little evidence of spread on campus. Most of these, when we look at adult cases and student cases, happen with exposure or activities outside of school. And again, we are looking at each and every one of those cases. What we're finding is that our mitigation strategies work, and we have to stay vigilant with them. And this is where we've done well. Face mask, wearing your face coverings. It is the difference between primary and secondary exposure. It works. Sanitation works. Staying home when you are sick. One of the things families are doing it is a good thing. If you have symptoms and you're not well and you haven't been at school, that's a good thing because it's not allowing for exposure to happen at school, on campus. So it's not a matter of not having illness, it's a matter of not being on campus to allow active cases to spread, which is really important. So hence, there is a tracking of each and every case. What we also know is that we want to have options for families. Next slide, please. What we've learned, we've talked with our families, we talk with our students, we talk with our leaders, we've talked with our teachers. Our students, I'll tell you, most students learn better in person. And that's not to say that when we were forced by executive order to close, you don't have a choice. One of the things you'll hear me say tonight is we have our district mitigation plan, but it can now be overruled by an executive order or Maricopa County shutting you down. And they have, and they will. But when you have the ability to make a decision at the local level, what we know is that our students learn better when they are able to do it in person. We want to be able to offer that for families as long as we're able to safely do so. We also know that the social emotional is really hard to replicate through a screen. There is so much, we are social beings and creatures. To be able to connect with each other, even socially distanced and through a mask, is far superior than through a screen. And social emotional learning is hard to replicate. And it's not that we are not doing that in the online setting, it is that for most students it doesn't have the same impact without. And those are what we know. When we look at other professional perspectives, and I'm going to start at the bottom because a couple weeks ago there was a news press conference with Kara Christ and Kathy Hoffman, who were talking about, yes, they're concerned about rising numbers in COVID cases, but they're equally concerned about rising cases in Arizona in suicide, in mental health issues. We also talked about the fact, you heard them saying that when schools close, this is detrimental. And again, every community, every situation is different, but we have to make the decisions. We have to make decisions for our local community. And again, you heard parents tonight reference I always want to call him Redford, but it's Redfield. She said again that when we are saying to you that sometimes there's concern when we say, well, the Higley dashboard doesn't mirror or trend the community dashboard. Are you hiding something? What are you doing? It doesn't make sense. One of the things we're saying is Higley's not alone in this. Again, we're following the guidance that we're required for tracking. Our numbers have to match the health department. And one of the things we do a little different than other districts is we update our dashboard daily. So if you're updating it weekly, it may never hit the active column. It may hit the resolved column. When you're doing it daily, you're going to see movement because every case is a little different depending upon when you were first had symptoms and tracking it back with exposure. And again, that comes direction not from Jillian, our district nurse, making that up, or one of the district administrators. We're following the direction from the state health department. So switching to the dashboard for just a second. There we go. So what hits the dashboard? So first of all, this is updated daily for a Monday through Friday. And it has, and we're updating not only the cases that might have been reported, but if there were new students or individuals or staff members on a location, that is also pulled from our student information system so that we can truly monitor at the site. Again, if there are positive cases that require communication because there was exposure on campus, every day there is a letter that would go to those either primary or secondary, depending upon exposure. Sometimes you, again, depending upon when the case was reported, whether it was self-reported or it came from the state, you will find that the case may stay longer in the active, but each case is tracked individually by their dates on their own. And so people can say, well, why did it go on one day and off the next? It's supposed to be there for 10 days. Depends on the case, depends upon when that person had its symptoms. And so one of the things that we have had Jillian do is she's been doing a little road show where she's gone around to our schools or has it scheduled to be so in the next few weeks to help answer questions to our employees about what goes on or why does it go on. We had, questions, concerns about what about if a student, again, when they showed symptoms, they hadn't been on campus for a while, they don't go on, obviously we track them, but it's not posted in here as a column. We've had conversation about potentially adding that column, although that column would not change our percentage of positivity because, again, they're cases, but they are not active or on campus at this point. So again, Jillian works tirelessly with the health department on reporting that. And again, how we're recording each and every case, what are the scenarios, is part of that presentation we've kind of done in the roadshow. And if at some point you'd like us to come back and do the roadshow for the community and for the board, we will do that because it would help to have the examples so you can see scenario one. If a student got sick on this day, showed symptoms or tested and was last on campus, who was communicated with or not. But please know that every active case that is on campus where there would be need for communication for exposure are tracked on that dashboard, whether in the active cases or in the resolved cases, and communication goes out.
So Dr. Foley, just clarification there. The example that comes to my mind is if someone was tested and confirmed positive, let's say over our fall break,
Correct.
that's not going to go in our confirmed active cases because they weren't on campus
Correct.
for 2 weeks. So
Correct.
if it came within
Correct.
that fall break time frame, so that's not going to show.
And Jillian would have that data and information, but it would not go on this. Right now, this is tracking our protocol for those who need to be communicated because of exposure or on campus during that time frame. And again, Jillian did not make up those time frames. She's following the exact dates that she's working with the health officials on. And oftentimes, I will tell you, our employees and our families are very good at reaching out and providing information. And sometimes they haven't been, but we still have the information. And so again, one of the things I will encourage you to do is if any community member, teacher, family member has concern about, are they hiding? The district has no desire to not do this right. There is no reason to hide this. This is meant to be a tool that we use for us to monitor what's happening on a campus and is there need for concern. If you have concern or wondering, please call and reach out to your site administration, reach out to Jillian the nurse, reach out to us in email so that we can listen to your concern and talk you through it. Now, you may not like what we're doing or how we're doing it, but know that we're following exactly with the guidance from the State Department on how to track that. Our numbers have to match theirs. And every single case and every single scenario, Jillian has neat, tight, and documented as thoroughly and completely as possible.
Thank you, Dr. Foley, for just reiterating what parents and families and our community members can do in the situation where they do. I think there is a lot of things going on the rumor mill, and that is not always helpful. So please go to your principals, go to your teachers, and have those conversations. Or teachers, go to your principals. That is their first, line of communication, and there is absolutely no end game for us to try to change this dashboard in any way, shape, or form. No. We want to be as transparent, doing it a daily update as possible. Is anything perfect today? I always go back to that. There's nothing perfect in education right now, but everybody's trying to do the best we possibly can. And again, if there is somebody out there that we've missed for some reason, please bring it to us. Bring it to the attention of your principals right away, and it will be addressed and it will be looked into further.
The one thing we have been very careful to say is that it's important to know that actually Higley does more on the communication than the health department would like. Our secondary notification, where we let you know that there was a case, if you're not a primary exposure, is more communication than they're comfortable with sending. But we feel that it's important. So one of the things that we're doing above and beyond is the daily update, which means it's real time, Monday through Friday. Cases are moving based on the individual scenarios behind there. And two, that additional notification we do is above and beyond what is actually encouraged to do. Because one of the things that's important is, again, we've talked about HIPAA and HIPAA, FERPA, ADA violations. If a parent were to call, what the nurse could not tell you would be who the person was, what was their symptoms. That would be personal information. But again, if there is question and concern about that, we please reach out. And again, going to those, when we're not putting it on the board, it's still being tracked because it would not impact our percentage of positivity in alignment with the direction we've been given from the health department. So again, we are not wanting to not do it right.
And Dr. Foley?
Yes.
And just going back to HIPAA law, we do not know the names of the students. So when you email us, sometimes you guys will tell us more than what we even know up here. So we do not know the names of the students. We do not know who's infected, who's not. It's kept from us as well. So just going back to HIPAA, it's very much a separate thing. We just know a number, just like you guys. Thank you.
And Dr. Foley, just wanted to go real quick back to President Kaler. Nothing's perfect. We have had some failure in communication, and I know that's been out there in the community. There has been some failure in communication. It was not on purpose. It was not malicious. And once it was brought to our attention, it was resolved. And if there continues to be, if there's something that a teacher, a parent feels they should have been communicated and weren't, they need to reach out to their site administrators. You were saying we're not doing anything malicious. We have no purpose of doing that. There was a failure, and we were able to track it down and change it. And hopefully going forward, that has been fixed. So I appreciate recognizing that we've had this and that we've addressed it, we've fixed it. Nothing's going to be perfect, but hopefully, if things do happen, that it's brought to our attention so that we can correct it. So we were talking about these cases. So these come from the health department, these numbers.
Well, or self-report, the health department confirmation, they confirm that on self-reported, but obviously we even move quickly when we've seen a parent provide a positive test. She may still be waiting on the confirmation, but starts the notification process, so that again, it is as quick as possible, but it is confirmed, yes.
So
and
only
again,
the confirmed cases go on the dashboard, though. We don't, although we have a parent notification, we start that communication process, but it doesn't go.
It'll hit every time there's a communication, that every time a communication goes out, the dashboard will reflect the active case.
So this could reflect self-reported as well.
Because she's in the process of confirming it with the state, because she'll get the formal documentation that says positive case, and you always have to confirm with the state, but we'll start the process of the notification and hitting it the dashboard. So even if the State Department is a few hours delayed, the letter won't stop that day.
Which is different than when we started, because initially when we started this process, we were fully waiting until we got it from the county, and we weren't really taking the health or the self-reported. And so now we've updated and changed to where we are now doing the self-reported.
Self-reported with the verification of a test result allows us to trigger that quickly. And so, and quite honestly, most time these things are happening by self-reporting anyhow. I mean, most people are coming forward and saying, I have concern. What does this mean? I will tell you that Jillian has worked really, really hard, but she has also spent a lot of time counseling parents and families and community members on so what, now what, and what does this mean? And I'm concerned about these, what about this? And she's been wonderful to help with that and find additional information. So,
Dr. Foley, did I just read today too that the CDC now says 7 to 10 days quarantine instead of 14?
So tomorrow, Jillian has a meeting. The Arizona Department of Health is having a meeting with all of the local nurses to talk about, so what does this mean? So yes, the CDC just announced that they're looking at shortening, the more that they learn about COVID and how it is transmitted and how it spreads, they're looking at the fact that, again, that quarantine could probably be a shorter period. And so they're looking at making recommendations instead of a 14-day to a 7 to 10 day. So, or 7 to 9 or 7 to 10 days. So that guidance is coming. So she has a meeting tomorrow with the health department, which of course, I think one of the other things is, when we started this year, we started our presentations to you with caution tape under construction. One of the things we're finding is that we are operating with the guidance and directions we're given, and then as direction and guidance evolves or changes, or as we learn more, we morph with the most recent guidance. So obviously, as that is formalized and they're going to have their meeting tomorrow, it may impact when a health department puts you under quarantine, the amount of days you have to be out. And again, one of the things we'll say is that health department or executive order trump a district plan. So we've had parents reach out when there has been a primary exposure and they have been directed to quarantine, and the parent says, but I just got my student just had a negative test here. unfortunately, the order from the health department requires so many days because they view that test is too soon to demonstrate or to show truly that you have not been exposed and potentially could be harboring the virus. So again, the guidance here is looking at narrowing down that window instead of a 14-day. But again, that's being formalized and guidance will come, and as soon as we get that direction, we'll communicate that out to our health offices, who, bless their hearts, today we're already emailing and texting Jillian, so what does that mean? She's like, wait till our meeting tomorrow, we'll get guidance and we'll update it. So I think what's important to remember is that we will continue to update what we are doing with the guidance that we are given or directed to do.
Please give our regards to Mrs. Fulton and her team. I know that it's countless hours, and I know that we're used to emails that might be a little harsh, but she sure hasn't, as a district nurse, endured the anger or the upsetness of a parent. And so this is new for her, I'm sure. So please give her our regards, that we appreciate her time and energy.
Well, I appreciate your acknowledging that, President Kaler, members of the board, because she is a member of the team who approaches this with integrity, and all she's doing wants to do it right, with upfront and cautious, careful, thoughtful, and we value and appreciate that in her and what she does with her team. So let's, moving ahead, want to talk about the proposal kind of in a nutshell, and then we're going to kind of walk through the details of this. But one of the things what we're wanting to do is to formalize. So if there happens to be a scenario in which, and this is where having a dashboard that is updated daily is helpful, is if there happens to be a scenario where you are seeing an increase in cases that are sustaining for a few days, that's concerning, because what that says to us all of a sudden is that there is a change here in how this is happening. You've noticed on the dashboard, things come on, things come off. And again, those aren't Jillian just deciding to play numbers here. That is based on each and individual case, based upon the exposure, the window, and tracking it by that campus. So if a school, so we're going to propose that if a school were to see 3 consecutive days where the percentage of positive or active cases met or exceeded the recommended percentages, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, we should be concerned. To be perfectly honest with you, if that's happening, we may have already been told by the Arizona Department of Health, got a problem, shut down. Or what we want to also say is, or if we as a district are seeing trends that, for instance, if our recommended percentages for a school said, well, I'm going to use an early childhood center for a second, said 6, because that was 2% of the population. If they were 5, we're not going to say you're not bad enough. We have to wait until there's one more of you who has COVID before we would trigger this. It would say to us, if we're seeing for 3 consecutive days, Monday through Wednesday or Tuesday through Thursday, that we're seeing these numbers are rising and sustaining, it says to us we need to probably take a look at that. Or the health department says, because of these exposure, this is a little bit different trend, or how there was, for an instance, if there was an issue where there was no mask, there was primary exposure, we'd need to quarantine. That again could change the dynamics. Every case and scenario is a little different. It would transition us to a 1 week of remote learning, because the concern is there are too many cases on the campus that are active that cause us to want to make sure that we do a mitigation strategy that would slow the spread, because we have a rise in active cases. Next slide. So our proposal would be is that if we had a site, and we were looking at a site-by-site mitigation strategy, if we had a school where we saw that those were trending and sustaining and heading in the wrong direction prior to a directive to shut down, we would propose that the next week, and this would be made on a week-to-week basis, that the next week we would transition the learning model for that campus for 1 week to a remote learning for everyone on that campus. The purpose of that would be to slow the spread and the numbers of positivity down. What would happen would be, again, that by Thursday night, by 5 o'clock, we would notify families and staff and employees that said, come next week, we are transitioning this school to remote learning. That doesn't give a whole lot of time, but it allows you to know that because of the cases sustaining, school would still happen that Friday, but the following week we would transition to a remote learning. The entire school would go through some deeper sanitization, and we'll talk about what that would be in just a second. And again, the whole school would shift for that 1 week. And we'll talk about why only 1 week in just a second. But again, I want to stress that this would be our mitigation plan unless the ADHS said, you need, if a directive comes, it overrules, it trumps our plan. It says, if an ADHS comes in and says, nope, because of a primary exposure, we're going to send you into a quarantine. Now, those quarantine days may be fewer in the next few days than they might have been, but instead of it being a 1 week, it could be 7 days, it could be 10 days, and it could start tomorrow, depending upon the directive. We would never ignore a directive from the health department or an executive order. So again, that's a caveat to that. So next slide.
Dr. Foley, really quick before we go on this slide. So I just have a few questions, I guess, here. That if we're in a remote environment, can you please clarify for me that will cease any and all outside activities?
Correct.
Because when we first started kind of having the discussion of a further mitigation plan, one of my questions was, is there a way that we can slowly start backing things off? Like many of our speakers have said, Dr. Kara Christ has said, many people have said that we know that this spread is not happening within our schools. The majority of it, whether it's outside family activity, getting together, things like that, we do still have some activities going on. I know it's very difficult for parents. I too have a senior, and I would love to have my child have a typical senior year, and that's just not possible given our circumstances. But I think we need to make sure we're prioritizing our classroom education. And I'm going to say classroom education because there is value to additional things that we do on our campuses and what our kids get involved in. But we need to prioritize our classroom education. And so for remote, all those things will cease, correct?
Vice President Reese, members of the board, correct. We're going to talk about that in just a second, about what happens on a campus. But yes, when the campus is closed, everything at that school stops. There will be no outside activities, clubs, sports, events of any kind that happen on that campus. If the campus closes, the campus closes for the period of the week. One of the things that we would also say is an additional mitigation strategy for if we had an administration, the district would work with our site administration. If we were approaching and sustaining numbers, not meeting that threshold but rising, we would encourage events that were happening or performances or outside things to be postponed, delayed, canceled. Again, this is why we wanted to formalize this so that we can begin, again, implementing this as an additional tool in our toolbox for decision making on events and other things. But when we trigger a shutdown, everything for that week closes down. One of the other things I wanted to stress too is that bullet 2, this would be made on a week-by-week basis. So we make the call for a week that because numbers were rising this week, we need to, we're rising and sustaining. We need to trigger to a full remote learning. If cases continue to come in, and I know there are people asking, well, but how will you know school is closed? But again, remember, if in doubt, don't delay. We will know eventually because those cases continue to come. If the cases the next week sustain, we're going to make the call the next Thursday to say, based on the fact that cases have sustained and are continuing to rise on our active cases, we will continue this week. It'll be made on a week-to-week basis. But our hope would be that, again, by the time you wrap around 2 weekends and a whole week, that we are minimizing the amount of loss of instructional time, and we're almost at a quarantine, 9 days. So we'll highlight that here in just a minute and see what it looks like on a calendar, but essentially it is providing an opportunity for slowing the spread. Again, means mitigation strategies are working by minimizing the amount of time that we would be out of school. So next slide. When we say, well, what should our proposed percentage of positivity be? Our recommendation, and again, you've seen other districts put out similar percentages that they're considering for their mitigation plan, and again, they're yielding different outcomes. Every district is looking at what works for them, but when we, as our administrative team, looked at this, we actually feel that these are good working threshold numbers to apply, because we're talking about increased and sustained numbers. Let's take a look at what this looks like. Next slide. So this looks like our dashboard, if you will, because what you've got is the schools, the population or size, taking that threshold that we just showed before. And again, some may ask, well, why are the percentages different? The percentages are different because the number of students on that group or campus, again, make it so that it would be about the threshold that we would begin to say, there is concern here. So again, looking at the first one, Cooley Early Childhood Center, if we saw that we were sustaining a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday close to 6, we need to look at, we're concerned about the amount and number of active cases in that environment. That would lead us to say we may need an additional mitigation strategy to slow the spread. So next slide. And again, this is just it's showing it a little bit differently with looking at, again, these were pulled off the dashboard yesterday, not today, because we wanted the presentation to be posted 24 hours in advance, but looking at what were considered active cases on the dashboard compared to that threshold as of yesterday, the active versus the required cases. And I want to stress again that it would not be that we have to have you have to have 6 for those 3 days. If we are looking like we are there, or we're sustaining and we're not dropping off, or we're going to continue to be, we're going to err on the side of caution here. But that would be a more formal way for people to know that this is what we would do if we were concerned about the number of cases on that campus.
Okay. Hello. President Kaler, members of the board, cabinet, and community, and especially all of the people that are here this evening, we appreciate it. So you might be asking, why is it 1 week? And Dr. Foley elaborated, but it does give students a 9-day break from each other, being on the campus, and it allows that time for the spread to slow or stop. However, we will want parents to continue to let us know if they get a positive case. And like Dr. Foley said, the health department will continue to update us. There will be a complete in-depth sanitation and disinfection of the entire school site. That's happening daily, but Dr. Fowler and his team will go in and really hit the site hard. The other thing that we want to emphasize is this approach will lessen the impact academically on our students. So they're going to continue to learn remotely, but as we've discussed before, we believe in person is the way to go. Next slide.
Sorry, Mrs. Richards. If, I guess, go back maybe to the calendar there. I know we picked a January example. During our Christmas break, are we still going to be tracking numbers while we're gone so that if for any reason a certain school during Christmas time had an increase, they would get notification perhaps on that Thursday? I mean, we're not technically working, but we are working nonstop, 24/7. so that they wouldn't come back that first week in January. That is a possibility for a site, correct?
It definitely.
I wanted to make sure, because actually my daughter asked me that question today. She goes, does this still count during Christmas break? And I said, absolutely, but I will double check.
Yes, because it's a 2-week break. So a lot of things can happen when we're gone for 2 weeks or when we come back. And I think it's really important that parents keep vigilant about making sure if your kid has symptoms, do not come to school. It's okay. It's much better for everybody not to do that. So I think that our communication process about all of this is key, so families know what to do. All right, so we've already talked about this. It's a temporary return to remote learning. It's for a 1-week period, Monday through Friday, determined the week before. We would send notice to parents and staff no later than 5 p.m. on the preceding Thursday. But when I spoke with my principals, we talked about how important it is if we determine that sooner to get the message out as soon as possible, because it impacts so many people in so many ways. So the model would shift to remote learning for 1 week. We'll have additional cleaning, sanitation, disinfection. Administrators and teachers or other employees would be allowed back on campus either 24 hours or on the next school day. So if we close down on Friday and his team gets in there and it's good to go, they could potentially come back on Monday should they desire. So some teachers are going to pick, I want to teach out of my classroom rather than from home.
President Kaler, members of the board, Vice President Reese, hopefully this slide will help clarify the question that you had earlier. But when we do close a campus down, all activities on that campus are closed. And this goes honestly for all organizations. So when you look at athletics, that means we would not be allowing practices, anything like that, for that 9-day period. So I know even our sports practice on Saturdays, that would not be allowed for them to come back in. Sometimes the question is asked, could they go find a different place to practice? Because of the spread and the group of kids, the answer would be no. We are saying for 9 days you are stopping what is happening on your with that group. Activities, the same way. Clubs will not be allowed to meet on campus. Same thing, not off of campus either. They will be closed for the 9 days. If there were supposed to be a performance or event, if we could postpone it, we would postpone it. But if it's not able to be postponed, we would cancel that event. Facilities rentals, I'm working with community education facilities, we would have to close for facility rentals as well. And so I know there are organizations that are used to using our facilities on a weekly basis for all of the year. We would have to be in contact with them and let them know that our facility was not available for that time period because we don't want anyone on our campus. The learning will be remote, and I think we need to jump on this. There's this idea of remote versus online. That was the huge question back there. If you're an online student, this does not affect you at all. Your online classes are going to stay the same way. This is only for our in-person students who will now switch to remote for those 5 school days, 9 days total, but for the 5 school days. Originally, we had support services on campus. We will not be offering those support services on campus for that week. There's a waiver that we will be submitting, as was outlined in the executive order, to the ADE, because once again, our goal is not to have our kids congregate and be on campus. We want to reduce that spread. This also goes to Kids Club. On that particular campus, Kids Club will not be available on that as well.
This just goes back to, again, we don't want to close our schools. It impacts our community in such a grave way. The last time our schools were closed, everything closed. And so parents were home. I think about, again, even to Mr. Glover's comments, is we have to all work together to keep our schools open, because this time the parents are working again. And they don't have that luxury of staying home because everything's still open. So I always think that in my head right now is that I know that if we reach those levels, it's just really impactful in so many ways. And so again, we need all hands on deck to keep our schools open.
Members of the board, that's a lovely transition, because one of the things we want to clarify about this plan again is that this is a mitigation strategy. This is different than what happened under executive order that had us go into school closure. And again, it was very different. You couldn't go to a restaurant. You couldn't go to your favorite hangout. Things are open now. And so this is a mitigation strategy. If we find that we have concern about the number of rising cases that are sustaining, that tells us that we need to look at that more carefully. Would be our safety. It's a mitigation plan. Again, it would be our dashboard, our Higley dashboard that would trigger that. And I just want to reiterate that if at any point, though, the ADHS, because of the way the numbers were rising or the way the cases were spread, if we were directed to close, they would determine our return date, and we would follow that, immediately. So again, this would be our own mitigation plan in the event of we weren't directed to do something different. Next slide. Next slide.
Okay. Attendance continues to be very important, even if we're on a remote learning week. So we've had practice with this. Most of our families understand this unless they're new to our district, but students will be accounted for daily, and that's because we're using Canvas, but parents can also telephone, email, communicate through Microsoft Teams or Google Meets. Teachers can also see student participation through assignment completion, and sometimes our parents communicate through writing. So all of that is perfectly fine and acceptable. Only one of those is necessary for us to know a student is present. Mr. Lotzenhauser already talked about this when he said our online students are not impacted by this. They continue with attendance and their assignments and their classes as they are currently doing.
One thing we would like to add, sometimes parents want to change modalities and switch. We will not be allowing people, if they were online, if we were to go remote, to switch over, to go back to remote. You're gonna need to stay in whatever modality you are already in.
Because hopefully this is a 1 week thing, then we go back to in person. Next slide, please. All right, elementary. We will be looking at using Canvas as we have and continue to do with our students. This is a unique thing because elementary students, most of them are not one-to-one. They're not like secondary, taking devices back and forth. We're right in the middle of testing season, and should this happen, we're going to accommodate students without technology by providing printed materials, textbooks, workbooks, etc. A lot of our families do have technology, so we're blessed. The other thing that I want you to recognize is this will resemble what our online kids are currently doing. We know that live time with teachers is essential. However, we don't want our kids sitting in front of the computer for 6 hours straight. So you'll see that there will be small group opportunities, there will be time for special services, breaks, lunch, and of course, specials. So those vary a little bit based on primary, self-contained, or intermediate, which those kids are departmentalized in dyads or triads.
Secondary schools, we're actually looking at a different model than we did before. If you remember, before we had 2 days, kind of in the mornings, then we had a Wednesday off, and then 2 days. But we really feel like to maintain the academic momentum of what we've been doing in person, that we need them to be active and engaged with us more than we did before. So what we're asking is that they will follow their daily schedule, with the only exception would be lunch. Since everyone has the opportunity to be lunch, everyone would basically have an A lunch. So they go to first, second, and third hour, have lunch, then go to fourth, fifth, and sixth hour. We're asking and requiring the teachers to have a Teams meeting. When I met with the administration, we felt that 35 minutes was an appropriate amount of time to have an open Teams meeting required for every single class. We picked 35 because that gives them about 25 to a half an hour in between classes, because we know that sometimes there's screen fatigue, although I feel like sometimes with teens, they have a lot of screens anyway, and I doubt they get as fatigued as we do. But there is that opportunity for them to have breaks as well. But what we found is that the engagement when we're remote is not nearly what it is when we're in person. And we have to find a way to keep that up, and requiring, expecting more during this 1 week closure is really important for us. And so we're looking to do them meeting with every class every day and doing it for at least a 35-minute Teams meeting.
Mr. Lotzenheiser,
Go ahead.
sorry. If for any reason this would occur during finals, how would finals be addressed especially our secondary?
If we would continue to follow the finals schedule, how it is with the half days and the finals put in there, and then we would be looking at a way that they do finals remotely. That's not ideal, but that's something that we would have to do. I think it's important to finish up the semester and get that finished and not push it back to when they came back from break.
Thank you. Do most of our teachers plan a week or 2 weeks? How do our teachers plan? Is it a 1 week plan, a 2 week plan? I always think about, like, if they were going to close, they kind of have their lessons planned for the next week for sure, but do they go further?
That really depends on the teacher.
Okay. Okay.
Food services will still be open, and we'll be able to provide on our campuses. They can't eat on campus, but they can drive through curbside pickups for both breakfast and lunches.
Good evening, President Kalar, members of the board, my fellow colleagues, as well as our Higley community. Impact on employees. So we certainly know this is going to be disruptive to our students, our community, but also our employees. And we've tried to think strategically and thoughtfully about how we would not only continue the momentum as we talked about, because we have to in terms of our employees in their instructional models, but also looking at what we have to do at this site to be able to maintain what we need to do and keep them ready when they come back. So in terms of our administrators, our front office employees, facilities maintenance, grounds, and custodial, after that 24-hour period shut down where all those additional campus-wide sanitation and disinfecting protocols will occur, we are expecting those groups of employees to come back to work, continue to wear masks and physical distance. And the reason for that is because we still have to operate. Although our students are not physically on campus, they are still going to be learning remotely. And all of those same factors as Ms. Richards and Mr. Lotzenheiser has mentioned in regards to attendance, et cetera, has to be addressed, and people have to be available for that. Our certified teachers and our other certified, again, after the 24-hour disinfection, cleaning, and protocols, they can either come back to work and, as Ms. Richards mentioned earlier, work in their classrooms. We found that in the fall term, when we first started remotely, a number of teachers felt it was better to actually work out of their classroom due to connectivity issues with internet, as well as sometimes, depending on their home situation, it was better to be less distracted. So we'll allow them that option, and or they may work remotely. And if they work remotely, we'll continue the work log, and it has to be submitted to their site administrator, as we always have for any remote work, whether it's been in the fall or if it's continued in certain circumstances in regards to quarantining right now with certain employees and situations, depending on the needs. Beyond that, in terms of our classified, particularly our paraprofessionals, our health aides, and our kids club employees, related to our paraprofessional specific, there are certain situations in which worked successfully back in the spring as well as in the fall where utilizing those paraprofessionals in that virtual classroom is the first option. So we would want to look at that. If not, we would look at an alternative assignment. For example, because we could never not have enough people helping in situations of sanitation and disinfecting duties. We certainly have employees who would still have applicable to them, as of right now, continue the FFCRA. That goes until December 31st. We've not heard anything in terms of whether or not that'll be extended as of right now. But if they have time and they have not had to utilize any hours in related to that paid sick time, that would be available to them in lieu of any general leave. If we need help at other sites, we have been active in terms of our hiring and what we've been doing all across all positions in the district, but we are still short in certain areas at certain sites, and we can always utilize assistance in crossing guards, lunch aides, again, other custodial type duties at some of the other sites. So we would look at that as an option too. And again, other disinfecting and sanitation type methods. They could take their general leave, or they could look at unpaid time. So we have lots of options for everybody, and we'll certainly work with them and continue to work with them as we have since all of this started back in March, and work with their needs and the best serve theirs as well as ours the best we can.
Questions, comments, concerns?
Dr. Foley, I know we've talked about hybrid. It's a word that gets thrown around a lot. Do you want to explain maybe why we didn't go that route, just for our community to hear? Or maybe it's better for Mrs. Martins, because I know she also had that conversation with our teachers, but I just thought I'd pose it to you, and you can maybe pass it out as you see fit. Thank you.
Board Member Wilson and Governing Board, absolutely. So one of the things, when we started back at the beginning of this, we actually had like a COVID, our team that looked at all different kinds of scenarios, looked at all kinds of different schedules. One of the things that initially came out of those conversations was, we looked at all different kinds of schedules. There was concern about the hybrid schedule, being that the hybrid schedule, there was a lot of concern that there was, it's very hard as a teacher to plan in person as well as online for students who are not there. When students are not there on those days, they work independently. And again, the teacher, they can, call the teacher before or school or after school, but during the day, the teacher would not be available. So that was one of the feedback that we got initially from our task teams looking at schedules, going, that is not something that we wanted to recommend. It was either, we were either going to be in person or online. So again, could we implement a hybrid schedule? We could, but we've asked administrators, we've asked teachers, talk with us about how do you feel about a hybrid. For the one or two who said, yeah, I'd be interested in doing a hybrid. Now remember, in a hybrid, the teacher comes every single day. It's the students who come, they come 2 days in and usually a Wednesday out. And again, that's what our initial schedules kind of looked like that we played around with. The thought was, that makes it really hard because you're trying to do both remote and in person, and it slows down the amount of academic content that you cover. So from an academic perspective, the task team said, not our preferred schedule. So when we've asked people, tell us about, you want to look at a hybrid kind of schedule for the, like I said, the one or two say, yeah, I'm interested. We've had substantially more that said, no, for the very same reasons that came out in our initial task team. So it's not that Higley didn't put together a hybrid model. We looked at several different schedules. It was the recommendation of our task teams that we originally composed this summer when we began looking through what it could, would, should, might, or potentials for us as we navigated through school closure look like when we reopened. So again, if any of my other team members want to add additional, that's where we were with hybrid.
I would just say that when I've talked to a lot of parents, they were worried about it and trying to make sure they had childcare every other day or whatever model we put in place. So I understand that doesn't represent everybody, but in some of my conversations, they communicated that as well. The other potential issue for our teachers is if they're working every day and they have kids in our schools and their kids are 2 days a week, where do their kids go?
And Mrs. Richards, I'll piggyback on that, again, parents are working, and so, and I'm concerned that if for me personally, looking at a hybrid option, just big picture, is that the kids on the days they're in school in a clean environment with a mask on. And on the days that they're not in school, they're at the parks and Fat Cats and other places and skate parks. And there's not those kind of, so then you were exposing teachers to a student one day, every day they kind of know, you know, we're in a groove together right now. And then, oh, tomorrow, I don't know where you're going to be or what you're doing. And then the next day you're back in my classroom. And so I too kind of wrestled with hybrid this summer, and those kind of thoughts kept coming back into my head.
President Kaler, members of the board, again, it is a structure schedule. It works. It is a potential option. There are some districts that are using it, and there are those who love it or hate it. There's advantages to smaller groups. Then again, that's one of the things. But when our task teams, and again, one of the things that we've tried really hard to do is, again, build our plan and run it through our leaders and our teachers and our members of our task force and get feedback. That was not the one that they wanted us to consider at that time for many reasons. So again, that was the feedback we received.
And I too heard that from teachers. I just wanted our community to hear it because a lot of our community had been asking, well, why haven't we considered a hybrid? And I just wanted to make it very clear that our teachers were at least clear for us. We heard from teachers that they did not want to do a hybrid. Seeing different kids in and out of the classroom, they would be exposed the same as what they are right now. So not that I was suggesting a hybrid, I want to make sure that's very clear. I just wanted it to be known that we did consider it. It was
Mr. Glover is going to.
I want to be very honest. It was something we did discuss in the summer, and that's what we had come to, and we had, I think, talked about it again a few weeks ago, and I just want to make it very clear I was not for it. I just want the teachers to know I'm not for it. I don't want you to have to do that, but I did want our community to know we have considered it. So thank you.
Mr. Glover,
Madam
go ahead.
President. So now people have numbers and they have some certainty, and I think that will give some people a level of comfort. What I hope people did not take away from looking at our dashboard, and I want to be clear, is that you can relax now. We have got to keep our foot on the gas pedal here. You know, when I hear people saying like kids don't get COVID or they're not carriers, kids do get it. More than a million American kids have gotten it. They can transmit, and it's dangerous to suggest otherwise. You know, I learned the term nasal load because I learned that little kids can carry huge amounts of nasal load.
You didn't learn that when they were 2 in your house?
No, I did not. I did not know that one. But these are not magical numbers. You know, this is a result of hard work. You know, our numbers are low compared to the outside community because of the Herculean efforts of our staff, and I would say some responsible parenting, and a massive investment in things like air filters and cleaning supplies. So if we want to stay open, you know, we cannot be complacent or cavalier about these numbers. They're serious and there are triggers now. But this tonight, I think, is a call to the community. And, you know, we're fighting, we have to admit, we're fighting the clock for time here till a vaccine gets here, which will probably be, I'm hearing April, May-ish, maybe, if we're lucky. So, it's going to be a long year. And I would continue to encourage our teachers to be flexible and understanding as they have been and to continue to do that as we persevere. And, you know, I'll finish my comments by saying if we want to stay open, we all have to do the right things and encourage one another to do the right things. We know what works.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. Hats off to our teachers, because I know as much as the roller coasters that we've ridden every day, it has been challenging, especially when they do have a class that has been, several kids are missing because of a quarantine, and then trying to watch over them and their current class. And we love our teachers, and we're so grateful for them, and that is across the board in our district. And so just hats off to our teachers, and know that we eat, drink, and think about this all day long, every day. It doesn't leave us. So yes, and I agree, Mr. Glover, we have to stay vigilant. This is not a time to relax. on a lighter note, I did see a meme the other day that just made me chuckle a little, was that moms were afraid to send their kids or let their kids come home for Christmas break, that they would never get to go back. And because that happened last time with spring break. And so I was kind of giggling a little bit, but it is true and it could happen and we need to stay vigilant. So, Mrs. Reese?
President Kaler. I too want, you guys have worked so hard at this, and I want to thank the focus of the entire task team to keep our schools open. And we receive a lot of emails, and some say, you know, you guys say this is a tough decision, but it's really not, just close them. And then it's a really easy decision. And so thank you for putting our students first and coming up with a concrete plan, something that we can look at, something for our staff to measure, something for people to know what's happening in our schools. We've said it earlier, we're not seeing the spread within our campuses. And so it is hard when we look at that dashboard every Thursday, when we get our daily numbers, it is difficult to see and say, why are we still sending our children to school? Look at how much we're growing here. And our campuses, because of our teachers, because of our administrators, our custodial staff, because of our students, they are keeping those numbers low on campus. And I have to tell you, I have, again, while I wasn't able to respond to everybody, there are emails, the way our emails come in, it shows you when you have emails from that person and it will list them out. I have emails from people who in the summer were sending emails, do not open. You're being irresponsible if we send our kids back to school. Do not do this. It's not safe. And now receiving in emails, we have to keep our kids in school. It is the safest place for them to be. And we need them to be there academically. We need for them to be there mentally, socially, emotionally. And so they need to be there. I have received emails from teachers who, again, emailed me in the summer, do not open, it's not safe, you shouldn't do this. Now who are also emailing going, we cannot go back to a remote environment. We need to be in person. What I've seen from these kids and how they've worked and that they want to be there. This virus is real. It's going to be here for a long time. And hopefully vaccines will help. But you guys have done an amazing job from an administrative standpoint. I feel working with our staff. If people are afraid, they have their own reasons for being afraid. And, you know, thank you, Ms. Martins, for helping navigate for our staff what they can do, what their options are. We want every single one of our staff members and students to be safe and to feel comfortable. And we're doing everything we can to keep our students and staff safe. But if they're not comfortable, that conversation needs to happen. And thank you for giving so many options and really working on what we can do to try and help make a staff member feel safe here and comfortable. So you, I know, have put in countless numbers of hours working with our staff, and it's so appreciative. And so, like Mr. Glover said earlier, our theaters need to close, our bars need to close. Those need to close, I'm not saying they need to close right now, let's not take my words out of context, but those need to close before our schools do. We need to prioritize our students and their education. And so I love the plan. Thank you for taking the time to do it. I have to tell you, while I love the plan, I'm not thrilled of thinking of our kids going back to a remote situation. It was not conducive to their learning. It was not healthy for parents. And, you know, I mean, a lot of guys say happy wife, happy life. Boy, you know, you have moms and dads who may still be working from home, who are trying to do their jobs to provide for their families. And we go back into that remote environment, and they're trying to be educators, and they're trying to get through their workday that they can't change their schedule, and they have conference calls and trying to help their kids. So the thought of going back to a remote situation is not great for me, but understanding why we would need to do it and that you have a plan when we would need to do it. And we will not close our entire district unless we're told to do so. I know that was one of the concerns that people have said, that we would make these decisions district-wide, that they will be site-specific. So that, thank you. I know you guys are working hard, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness and the time it took to create this, to really make sure that this is what we need to do and how to do it. So I think it's important that people understand, we, like Mr. Glover's been up here so many times, we have to do our part. Our communities have stopped doing some of their part. Our grocery stores don't wipe down the carts like they did at the beginning of this and in the summer. They have the little wipes for you, but they're not doing that. People are getting lazy and using the chin diaper instead of a mask. And, you know, I'm not a fan of masks either. They drive me crazy, but I wear them in public. I wear them when I'm at work. It's important. So we do need everybody to do their part. And no matter what your feelings are for your own child, whether you believe it's real, not real, whether you believe in masks, that they help, not help, we need to think of someone else. And we need to think of our students. And if you have an online student and they're doing great, I'm glad, and anything we can do to help you. One of the questions we had on our board packet was, could we see our online lists? And what I noticed is we have classes online for one student. Classes online for one student, because a student, for whatever reason, chose to be online, which is the beauty of the choice, and that teacher made it happen. That teacher made sure that the student could get the class that they wanted as an elective to teach it online. So we have done a lot, and we just need people to continue. Don't have huge parties. Please talk to your kids, know where they are. Please don't support them going to large events. It just puts everybody in jeopardy. So I guess I took Mr. Glover's little soapbox, and we need to do our part. We need to keep our kids in school. I appreciate the plan that really focuses on not a knee-jerk reaction because our community numbers are climbing, but what's really happening in our schools. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Foley and team. I know people were upset with us for waiting till December 2nd to roll this out, but it wasn't just a one and done. This was a comprehensive mitigation plan, once again created from scratch and precise to Higley, which I appreciate, and that we just didn't kind of piecemeal something together, but we did talk to our stakeholders, and that was really important. So thank you for all the work. Any other comments or questions?
I do have the online classes. We did ask for them. And I was pretty impressed with all, like Vice President Reese said, all the classes that we're offering. It's amazing, honestly, because I wasn't sure. I'm like, okay, we are hearing that, you know, some classes are not being offered. I looked. There is a lot to be offered. It's pages and pages of, you know, regular English, honors English, AP English, all the things. So if you're not comfortable, it's okay not to be comfortable and to send your kid into this environment. This is an okay environment too. I stressed it when we went back in the fall, and I'll say it again. Your choice is the choice you need to make. We are not judging you. I'm not judging you. I would assume no one up here is judging you if you feel like you need to send your child for any reason to the online environment. And I don't feel like they should be judged to go in person either. That decision is purely based on your family and what you need at that time. And if this is the option, great. If the other option's the option, great. Let's not judge each other on that. Let's come together and just agree that you're educating your child the best way you see fit at this time. So thank you for this, because this is truly amazing on how many classes we are offering. And thank you to the teachers who are picking up 7/5 and all the things to make this possible. Because I know there's a lot of teachers who teach one class because they're in school in the in-person for the other 5. So thank you.
I think we have some staff members right now that are teaching in person, doing a 6/5 online, and also getting their master's degrees or other things. They're going to their students themselves. And so, again, teachers are, to me, are some of the most amazing people on earth, and I support them and adore them. So with that, I move that the governing board, I'm going to move on to 6.1. I move that the governing board approves the district's COVID-19 mitigation plan in the event there are increased percentages of COVID-19 cases on a school campus.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 4-0. I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a good evening.